Hello. So we are continuing our journey through the basics of working with Power BI, and so far we have been concentrating on the dashboard in a day dataset, and we got to a point where I wanted to show you how in Power Query you can do some database operations. I've shown you using the dashboard in a day data how you can do an append union query in SQL terms, and now what I'd like to show you is how you can do merge queries or joins in SQL terms. The problem though is that the dashboard in a day data doesn't really give us an opportunity to practice joins. So what I'm going to do now is to use a slightly more complicated data set and to show you how I might bring my data into the system doing both. I want to do an append and then also a couple of joins and show you how we can work with both of them to prepare our data model. The last video I made was on the 6 different types of join. If you don't know what the 6 different types of join are, it might be a good idea to find the link below this video for the previous one and watch that one first. Okay, because I'm assuming that you're going to know what, for example, a left anti-join is. Okay, so let's switch over, and this is my data set here. Just put it on my OneDrive. I have one Excel workbook and I have 5 CSV files. So these are the CSV files. Let's look at the workbook first. So I'll take a quick look at the data so we know roughly what to do with it. Right, I've got several sheet tabs here, and if I click in the table and then go to table design, I can see it is actually an Excel table, and this table is called order details, giving me a clue as to what it is. The other sheets, each of these have table names starting sales and then a date. So I've got sales 2017, sales 2018, 2019, 2020 and 21. So I seem to have 5 sheets, each of the same structure. I'm being a bit quick about this just because of the video, but I promise you they are the same structure. They have the same headers. The only difference is that the order date fields cover only the year that is shown by the name of the table. So I've got 5 years worth of data here in terms of the order date, each in their own sheets. So these are the tables that I'm going to want to append together. Okay, so that's my spreadsheet, and then as you can guess, I think from the names of the different CSVs, the CSVs all have very different structures, and I'm going to want most of those really to be brought into the data model individually. But if we look at products, subcategories and categories, let's look at products first. Here we have a subcategory ID column which links to the subcategory. So each product is in a particular subcategory. And if I have a look at the subcategory.csv file, in there I've got a category ID which links up to the category that it's contained in. Okay, so it might make sense, rather than importing or connecting to product subcategories and categories as 3 separate tables and leaving them as 3 separate tables in the data model, it might make sense to make economize a little bit in my data model and put all those tables into one table. Okay, so that's the plan. I'm going to connect to Eastwind and bring in all of those orders rows or orders tables and put them all in one by using an append operation, and then I'm going to take the subcategory, products and category tables and do 2 merges to put those all in a revised products table. Okay, so that's the plan. So we switch over to our empty Power BI desktop file. So I'm going to connect to my Excel workbook first. So it's that East Wind one. And we can see it's showing me the names of the tables that I found. Order details table that was on the front sheet, and then my 5 different years worth of orders that are in those sales tables. I want to bring it into Power Query, of course, so transform data to open the Power Query window. So I'm going to tidy things up after I've made all of my connections. So now we'll go back and find our CSV files. New source, CSV, same folder, category first of all. Okay, and again, CSV, customer. Okay, so as usual, we need to go through each of the different tables that we've connected to and make sure that the data types are correct and that we don't need to do any other types of transformations. So starting at the top then, the unit price, that should represent money, so we need to change that to fixed decimal number. And because we're currently on a change type step, I want to just change the code in that step rather than adding a new one. Quantity should just be a whole number. Discount though should be a percentage. So if I click on there, I can change that to percentage. I haven't seen that data type before. Post current, that changes that to percentage. And then for each of these files, this should be the same structure. The dates are all normal dates, which is good. Freight, that should be money, fixed decimal number. And all of the other data types are correct. So again, I think the only thing we need to change in all of these is changing the freight to fixed decimal number. They're all exactly the same structure. Okay, so category then, that's very simple. I don't need to change anything in the little category table. Customers. Now customers strangely seems to have lost its header, so I need to click on use first row's headers. Now I need to check that the data types are correct. Everything seems to be text though, so it's pretty straightforward. I think that looks right. Everything's text. Products. Now here's where I have my subcategory ID, which is going to be linked to the subcategory table, and I have some money in here as well. So cost price, although it looks like an integer, that actually should be fixed decimal number, and the unit price should be clearly. And all of the other data types are correct. Subcategory doesn't need to be changed, so that's all fine. Good, so we've done our basic steps. Now what we need to do is to take our 5 sales tables and to do an append operation. And like I did 2 videos back, I'm going to use append as new. So on the home tab, in the combine group, and remember if you've got a small screen you will actually see a combine button which you have to press first. I'm going to press the drop down next to append queries so that I can find append queries as new. And because I want to append 5 tables together, I need the more complicated dialog. So 3 or more tables. It's already put sales 2017 in the box on the right, so I just need to double click on the others one after another. So I'm going to have 2017 records at the top, then 2018 under that, then 2019, 2020, and finally 2021. So those are the 5 tables I want to append together. I say OK, and now that's given me my combined sales table, and I'm going to rename that orders. Good, so now I want to combine the products, the subcategories and the categories into one table, and we need to start at the most granular level because the pointers to the other levels always go upwards in the hierarchy, from the granular levels at the bottom up to the more aggregated levels above. So I need to start with products because that's got the subcategory ID in it, and link that first of all to subcategory. But if you remember what I said in the previous video, deciding what kind of join to do is quite important. So let's first of all just do a little test to see whether there exist any products that don't have matching subcategories, or vice versa, any subcategories that don't have matching products. So I'm going to start by selecting products, and then I'm going to say merge as new. And now I select the second table here, subcategory, and I need to specify which 2 fields should be linked together in a relationship. Well, it's the category ID. That's the thing that should, sorry, the subcategory ID. That's the thing that links them together. So I click on their headers to show that I'm creating a relationship between the subcategory IDs. And now here is where you can specify the type of join. So in the previous video we looked at all 6 of these different types of join, and I think the easiest way to check whether there's anything in the products table that doesn't match anything in subcategories and vice versa is to look at the anti-joins. So if I go to left anti, if there are any records in that, that will show me the products that don't have a matching subcategory. And there aren't any. It's an empty table. Okay, so that's useful. I know there aren't any products that don't have matching subcategories. What about the other way around? Let's click on the cogwheel. When you have an applied step with a cogwheel on it, you can click on the cogwheel and revise the way in which that step was executed. So now I can check whether there are any subcategories that don't have any matching products. Right anti. So now there does seem to be something here. It's giving me a null record. Null because so far all of the columns except for the combined one on the right actually come from the products table, and the way I've defined my query says I'm looking for the subcategories that don't match anything in the product. So obviously it's going to give me nulls everywhere in the products table because it's matching it against nothing. So what I need to do now is to look at this combined column on the right, subcategory, and click this button. Click on there, and I can now see the columns from the subcategory table that have been put together into this combined column. Now, if I just say OK, it's going to give me all 3 columns, subcategory ID, category ID and subcategory name, and it's going to add a prefix before each of those of subcategory dot. I don't really want that, so let's remove this option so that it's not going to use the original column name as a prefix. Okay, so OK. And now I can see actually it's shown that there are 2 records, 2 subcategories that don't match any products. So they must be old subcategories that for some reason have been discontinued or that don't have any subcategories associated with them any longer. I think it'd be quite useful to retain those. So what we'll do now is we'll go back. Let's remove that last step, and instead of doing a right anti-join, which is really just a test, we'll change that now to a right outer join, because of course I'm really interested in all the records that match. Those are the most important ones, and the icing on the cake is really just going to be those extra subcategories where there aren't any matching products. So I want the right outer join here. Good, so same kind of structure as it showed us for the right anti. What we need to do now is to decompose our subcategory column into its components. I don't want the prefix, but let's put all three headers in there. And you notice that for the first one, subcategory ID, it's added a .1 on the end, because of course we've also got subcategory ID that came from the product table. So where we have matching records, they're going to be the same thing, but when we have records that are in the subcategory table that are not in the product table, then we will have nulls in the one that came from the product table, but we will have entries where it came from the subcategory table. So really the one that comes from the subcategory table is the more reliable one. Let's keep that one and rename it, and I'm going to go to the other one and get rid of that one. So delete the subcategory ID there, remove, and now I can rename the new one with the .1 by removing the .1. Fine, okay. So this is a preliminary step. I don't really need to rename it. This is products and subcategories. Now I want to take this and do a join with the category table by using the category ID here. So I select my new merged data, and again I'm going to say merge as new. So I'm going to take this, which is the combination of the products and the subcategories, and combine it with the categories, this time using the category ID to join them up. Right hand side, category ID, that field came from the subcategory table. And in this particular case, I think we're going to use an inner join. I could, test, see whether there are records on one side that don't match anything on the other, and have done already, and actually there aren't any. But I think with the categories and the subcategories, it is much less likely that you would have categories with no subcategories. Just because they're such big aggregated objects, so you're not likely to have those. So let's go with an inner join there. And now again we've got to decompose our combined column on the right, which at the moment is just showing category, and I want all three of those fields, or do I? Actually, I don't need the category ID. That's going to be the same as the category ID I had in the subcategory table, so I can leave that one out actually. Good. So I think my data's all straight. What we need to do now is to rename my merge to. I quite like to call that products, but I've already got a table called products, so let's rename the original products table products orig, the original products table, and then we'll rename merge to as products. Good, almost ready. So now before we load our tables into the data model, we need to make sure that we're not loading our data more than once. When we have a preliminary version of the data, for example, with each of these sales tables, we don't want those loaded as well as the combined ones in there, the combined version in there. So we need to disable the load for all of these separate sales tables. So right click, remove the tick where it says enable load, right click, disable the load. So I showed you this 2 videos back. Good, so all of those tables are combined in this orders table, so we're definitely going to need to load that one in. We want the order details table. Now what about these other ones that we've combined? Category, obviously products, orig, and subcategories, those don't need to be brought in as well because they're all contained in the new products table. So I'm going to right click on category and disable the load for that, disable the load for products orig, and disable the load for subcategory, and also for merge one, which was a preliminary step. So let's just check the queries that are not italic: order details, customers, orders and products. I think those are the only ones I need. So we just say close and apply. Close the Power Query window. Now I can see my tables, my 4 tables that I wanted in the data pane on the right. And if I go to model view, I can see my 4 tables have been brought in to the model. We are going to need to do a little bit of tidying up here because we're missing 2 relationships, but we'll come to the information about creating relationships in the next video, and on that one we're going to come back to the dashboard in a day data and continue the journey through the dashboard in a day course. Good, so I hope this has been useful. Now you know how to do merging as well as appending, or database joins as well as union queries, and now we're ready to start working in the data model itself. Okay, see you in the next video.